All right, guys, welcome back to another podcast on MMAUnhinged. Today, as you can see to my left or right, one of them depends how it is. It's to my left over there, and it's probably to my right on the camera. But as you can see, that's a different face. It is. It's Luke Kelly from MMAUnhinged. An absolute pleasure, Luke. I appreciate you coming on the show. We're here to talk about some fights, and Oscar will be on the show later. He will be joining a little bit later. So appreciate your time, Luke. How are you?
I'm good, man. And how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic. It's great to have you on the show. Obviously, part of MMAUnhinged, you do some interviews as well. So, how's your? I'll quickly ask you a question. Put you on the spot a little bit. How's your time been since you've been with MMAUnhinged and kind of associated with us?
It's been awesome, man. It's crazy. I guess I'll tell everyone in a nutshell the whole story. I did my own thing for a little bit for a couple of years with Empire Universe, but I decided I had to step back for a little bit. I had a lot of crap going on, and then MMAUnhinged reached back out to me and offered me to work with them, and here we are. And I'm happy to do it. It's a great group of guys that we're working together with, and hopefully we can continue to build either further.
Absolutely, we've got a fantastic, little team here. Obviously, me, Ben, yourself, Oscar as well on the podcast. Absolutely fantastic. I really like it. But we're here to talk about some fights that are going down this weekend. Grant Dawson versus Bobby Green, the main event this weekend, UFC Vegas 80. A fantastic main event. I'm liking it. We're going to quickly put the screen on there. As you can see, I was accidentally at the bottom. But we will talk about the main event first. Obviously, we go from top to bottom.
100%.
Grant Dawson versus Bobby Green. A fantastic fight. Bobby Green, a veteran. He's been in the UFC for a very long time. Grant Dawson, I can't really call him up and cut him because I feel like he's been inside the UFC for a very long time. But he's been on a good run, a good stretch of fights. Knocking out Leonardo Santos with them hammer fists. It was nasty. But since then, obviously, beat Jared Gordon, Mark Madsen, Damir Uzmagulov. And now he takes on Bobby Green in his first UFC main event. So, Luke Kelly, your first question of the podcast. Who do you think wins the main event?
Well, okay, so I thought about this, and this is a really good matchup for both gents. Let's just keep in mind, Grant Dawson, this is his first main event. I know it's just a fight night, but it is his first main event. In recent interviews, it doesn't sound like he's overly nervous. It seems like the jitters are out, and it seems like he's going to be all right mentally. But I think this is a tough matchup. There's no secret that Bobby Green, his stand-up is great. He does have submission skills. I mean, he submitted Tony Ferguson, but I will get to that in a second. But I mean, his stand-up game is great. So it's going to be interesting to see like Grant Dawson being challenged a little bit in that area, as he is a great grappler. So this is kind of a grappler versus striker match, I feel. And I think if he can get to the ground, I think this is going to be a really good fight for Grant. Mind you, he is fighting a veteran too. So, this isn't the first rodeo for the other guys. So it's interesting to kind of see what's going to happen. However, there's a lot more, I think, to gain for Grant. There's a lot more to lose for Green. I think, yeah, he had a fight. He had a win over Tony Ferguson, but I think, like, to be fair, this is not the same Tony that he could have beaten like 5-6 years ago. So I'm not just taking anything away from Bobby Green, but I think that Grant Dawson has a lot more to gain and doesn't have as much to lose. So there is a lot of pressure on Bobby Green. But if I had to throw my money in, I would have to go with Grant Dawson. I think that he's going to get the takedown. He's going to find those openings and mix it up a little bit and get that takedown. And I think he's going to submit him. And if he's not going to submit, it's going to be ground domination.
Absolutely. Fantastic fight. A fantastic main event. I'm looking forward to it. Grant Dawson got his justified main event. It's been a long time coming, I feel. But he talks about Bobby Green. He's been around for a very long time inside the UFC. He talks about that win over to Tony Ferguson. Obviously, an aging Tony Ferguson. It was an arm triangle choke. Is there too much we can really take away from that fight? I'm not too sure. But, the Jared Gordon fight, the accidental clash of heads. He lost to Drew Dober, lost to Islam Makhachev. They're some of the best guys in the world. I think Grant Dawson has got a really tough task on his hands. It's just the way we're going to see him win. He's looked near enough perfect since, well, he is perfect since he's entered the UFC. 8-0 with one draw, sorry. You know, he's looking really good. He's a finisher, as you mentioned, really good on the ground. Submitted Jared Gordon, submitted Mark Madsen, Mark Madsen was an Olympic-style credited wrestler. So that's a fantastic, name on his resume. This one is, I'm really looking forward to, but I completely agree. I also fancy Grant Dawson and submission. I like them odds. I think that's highly likely.
Yeah, and I think like to add on that, with him being a guy like Madsen, it just shows the level of wrestling that man possesses. And I think, like, I mean, everyone says the fight starts on the feet, but that being said, I mean, the fight can start on the feet, but if you got a great wrestler, they're gonna know how to get you to the ground, and I think that's more dangerous than just having that stand up skill.
Yeah, absolutely. But if we're talking about Bobby Green, he's so awkward, isn't he? When it comes to stand up, he's very slick. He's he's very mobile. He's throwing the strikes from unorthodox angles. So who knows? This MMA game is weird, and if 2023 is telling us something, is that you can never be too sure.
No.
It's crazy. But yeah, absolutely. Fantastic main event. Looking forward to it. And we'll see what happens this weekend. Obviously, Bobby Green versus Grant Dawson. Oh, it's going to be an absolute firecracker. I can't wait. And we'll talk about the co-main event as well, who I think was even good. Well, not even good, but this is a fantastic co-main event. Joe Pyfer. Be like Joe Pyfer. Dana White said that after he got his UFC contract, and now he's in the UFC co-main eventing for a UFC Vegas fight night. Wow! If you look what who he's got across him, Abdul Razak Al Hassan. This dude could knock out probably anyone on any given day. It just depends how he turns up and how he fights on that day, and obviously who the opponent is. And if we look at across him, it's Joe Pyfer. I really rate Joe Pyfer. I think he's a fantastic prospect, and I think he's going to get another name on his resume with Abdul Razak Al Hassan. The UFC, I feel like I've thrown another spanner in the works of getting him another matchup, a different stylistic matchup compared to the last one. He knocked out Jared Mershot, so I feel like maybe Abdul Razak Al Hassan is a little bit of a step down in terms of competition. I think Jared Mershot is really underrated. I think he's fantastic, but that's when it comes to the grappling department. I think he's good. Striking, he's not really good. But Abdul Razak Al Hassan, everyone knows what he's got, and that's the big right hand. But does he land it? Luke, who wins this one?
No, I got to go with Joe Pyfer on this one. Contender series guy. He's been looking really, really good. But I got to say, with Abdul Al Hassan, I would never sleep on the guy. He's got some really good power, but he's kind of been win-loss lately, and a little inconsistent. But not to take anything away from him on his record. I still have to go. My gut goes with Joe Pyfer. I know we talked about it. It is 2023. You never can just count anybody out. But no, you know what, Joe Pyfer. I think throwing my money in, I would definitely go with Joe Pyfer. I just think that this could be a very good fight, or it could be a one-sided fight. But I got to go with Joe Pyfer.
Absolutely agree. Joe Pyfer is, looking near enough fantastic. Well, perfect inside his UFC career already. Obviously, he had that fantastic win against Jared Mershot last time out, and now he looks to continue momentum against Abdul Razak Al Hassan and continue his way to the top of the division. There's some fantastic matchups in the middleweight division, and Abdul Razak Al Hassan needs to get past it to get to them, and I think he will. I think he's going to look near enough spectacular. What I think is funny as well, in his last fight, he beat Jared Mershot, and then he beat him in the grappling. So that also that shows how good he is in the grappling department as well. He knocked out Jared Mershot, and then he beat him on the Fury Pro grappling. Like, I feel like maybe that's what we should also take in count of as well, how good his grappling is. So maybe we see that as well. But Jared Mershot has some power. Not Jared Mershot. I mean, Joe Pyfer has some power, and I think we're going to see it on full display this weekend. Fantastic co-main event. Looking forward to it. I'm going to move on to the next one. Another firecracker, another fan favorite. Alex Morono versus Joaquin Buckley. Joaquin Buckley, known for the most viral knockout outside the UFC. That's Minute Baki versus Ivan Cazano. It was crazy, but does he get
insane?
It done?
Yeah, insane. I think like with this fight. This is like two guys with missiles on their hands. This is like the fight where you're kind of like you don't want to be distracted. You don't want to be looking at your phone. This is the kind of fight that anything can happen from the bell hitting to the end bell. Like this is gonna be something where I don't know if this is gonna be a technical. This is gonna be a swinging match. This is gonna be swinging nothing but the kitchen sink. Okay, this is a great fight. A guy like Alex Morono, he's fought a lot of who's. I mean, he's fought Anthony Pettis. Unfortunately, he lost that fight. However, he's fought Anthony Pettis. He's fought Donald Cerrone, who he did win. So it's a very interesting matchup to kind of see what's going to happen. But then you got Walkley and Buckley, who's also fought some good guys. Obviously with that crazy knockout that he had, that just kind of shows you that you never know what to expect from this guy. It kind of reminds me of kind of a Nico Price having all these weird knockouts. I really want to see what's going to happen in this. I think this fight can kind of show who can kind of get into that maybe that top 10 or the top 15. It's going to be really interesting to see what's going to happen. Alex Morono, he's fought a lot of good guys, a lot of good veterans, which only makes you better as a fighter. But then you got Walkley and Buckley, who's had quite a few good wins lately. So it's interesting to see this matchup. But if my heart has to go into anybody, I think I might be going with Alex Morono on this one. But this could be ending in a draw too. I could see that happening as well. What's your take?
Yeah.
Okay, so I
just joined the show. Appreciate you, Oscar. Thanks for joining us.
Oscar, welcome,
just quickly,
man.
How are you?
Sorry for being tardy, but I do have to disagree with Luke Kelly here. I do think that Joaquin Buckley, sure, he may be behind on the technique, but the physicality and the power that he possesses, I think it will be a little too much for Alex Morono. If you remember Morono's fight with Chaos Williams, that was a fight where Chaos Williams probably isn't as good technically, but he was just able to overwhelm him with that power. I think Joaquin Buckley will put down Alex Morono in round 2 with a big right hand.
Yeah, obviously, if you look at Alex Morono's record, he has been put out before. Now, just a few fights ago versus Santiago Ponzinibbio, he got knocked out with a right hand, and obviously he's got knocked out by Chaos Williams. But who doesn't get knocked out by Chaos Williams? He's got a mean right hand. But yeah, fantastic fight. I'm looking forward to it. But what Alex Morono does possess is that grappling department. Do you not see that being a struggle for Joaquin Buckley, Oscar? Do you think he's just gonna be able to handle that?
Buckley showed that his takedown defense is actually pretty solid. He fought Albert Duraev at middleweight last year, and he stuffed almost every takedown, and he battered him on the feet. Duraev, I would say, is probably a better wrestler than Alex Morono.
I'm looking forward to a fantastic fight nonetheless. But yeah, we talked about the co-main event. Oscar, give us a quick pick, and then we'll keep it moving on.
Yeah, for the main event, I'm big on Grant Dawson. Grant Dawson has an amazing ground game. He fought Demir Magulov in his last fight, got a lot of control time. I think Bobby Green will get submitted here. He was submitted immediately by Islam Makhachev. I think Grant Dawson is creeping up into the conversation of top grapplers at lightweight, and this win will solidify him as that. In the co-main event, it's probably whoever lands first, honestly. Both guys are knockout artists. But as soon as Abdulrazak Alhassan gets out of round 1, he's not the same fighter. Joe Pyfer, on the other hand, is definitely in the cardio advantage here. I think Joe Pyfer will knock out Abdulrazak Alhassan in round 2.
That's exactly what me and Luke picked. We went for Grant Dawson submission and went for Joe Pyfer. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Keep it swiftly moving on. Another fan favorite to another fan favorite. Everyone loves when Drew Dober's fighting, and he's fighting Ricky Glenn. This is a fantastic fight. I'm looking forward to it. Drew Dober, obviously not on the best run as of late, but he's trying to make a return. Obviously back to the top 15, top 10. Obviously he got knocked out by Matt Frivola. Before that though, he was on a 3-fight winning streak, beat Terrence McKinney, Rafael Alves, and Bobby Green. But he lost to Matt Frivola. That was a big one. Matt Frivola, obviously in the top 15 now. Going on to fight. I can't remember who the life of me it was. It was meant to be at New York, but it slipped my head. But now he's fighting Ricky Glenn. Who do you reckon wins this one? First, we'll go to Oscar, and then we'll go to Luke.
Yeah, so Drew Dober is this first-round knockout guy. And Ricky Glenn in his last fight got knocked out in the first round. Drew Dober himself was knocked out in the first round in his last fight, but that was an outlier. Matt Frivola does hit very hard. Ricky Glenn is more of a grappler. I think Drew Dober's Muay Thai is levels above Ricky Glenn's. I think as soon as they get into the pocket, Ricky Glenn will have his lights put out by Drew Dober. It's a good comeback spot for Drew.
And now over to Luke. What have you got?
Yeah. With this fight, I mean, Oscar kind of said it all. And with this kind of matchup, yeah, definitely with Ricky Glenn, I can kind of see this fight where he's going to try to take him to the ground right away. I think he's going to try to gas out Drew Dober a little bit to kind of take away a little bit of that power, knowing that he does have more of that advantage on the feet. But I think if Drew can kind of keep it on the feet, I think this is definitely a Drew's fight for sure, and he just has that more of that dominance there. Now with a guy like with Drew Dober, you know, he's fought a lot of good guys. It seems like he's had a lot of good wins. Obviously, he got that win over Bobby Green, which was really, really impressive over a veteran like him. But he's also fought and he's beaten a lot of good guys, up and comers who are really good, who are up and coming. So I think he's got so much skill, and I think the more he fights all these vets, I think it will actually even make him even better, and maybe make him a little bit more composed, and maybe not go for the kill in the first round. So maybe after fighting a couple of those guys, will we kind of see him a little gun shy in the beginning to kind of learn from his mistakes and not go full throttle in the first round? It'll be interesting to kind of see. But it'll be interesting to kind of see what his strategy is going to be as well. So I definitely still have to go with Drew Dober. I think he's got more in this fight to offer than Ricky Glenn, but you can't really count Ricky Glenn out too. Great guy, great fighter, but I'm going to go with Dober here on this one.
Absolutely agree. Fantastic fight. Looking forward to it. It's always good to see Drew Dober back. Always in some fantastic fights, exciting fights. So you know this one's going to produce. Looking forward to it. Move on to Bill Algeo, 145 pounds. Bill Algeo versus Alexander Hernandez. And this one, this was massive for Alexander Hernandez, who once touted as well, a fantastic prospect, bouncing onto the scene, knocking out Benil Dariush. It was all looking good. All going swimmingly for the prospect. And then suddenly something clicked. I think it might have been the Donald Cerrone fight where he got knocked out, and it just all went wrong after that. He beat Francisco Trinaldo, but then he lost to Drew Dober. He beat Chris Guttemacher. He lost to Thiago Moses. And then he obviously lost to Renato Moicano, lost to Billy Corratino. But then he beat Jim Miller. But now he fights Bill Algeo, who is on... I'll quickly look at his run now. He's on a win versus TJ Brown, a rear naked choke. Before that, he lost to Andre Fili. This one, I would say, is a tough one to pick. But if I'm going off anything, this one I would probably pick against Alexander Hernandez. I just don't think he's looked too good as of late. But we'll go to Luke first. What's your thoughts on this fight? Who have you got winning? And then we go to Oscar.
Alrighty. Well, Billy Boy, I got to go with him on this fight. I think he's definitely getting up there. With Alexander Hernandez, after his loss with Cowboy, I mean, he deemed him a geriatric fighter, and calling him all this stuff. He had a lot of confidence, like overconfidence, and then a guy like Don Cerrone, he was counting him out, and he really got his ass whooped. So it'll be really interesting to kind of see what's going to happen with Alexander Hernandez. I think any fighter. I mean, you look at guys like if you look at some of these fighters, they've been able, come back in their 40s and win a world title. It's happened in the last year or two. So you never know. Like, there's always time for guys to come back and gain that confidence again. But as of right now, we're not seeing that from a guy like Alexander Hernandez. As much as he's skilled on the feet and has those skills, he looks like he's lost in there. He just looks like he doesn't have that same oomph that he had before. So it's going to be definitely interesting to kind of see what happens. But I got to go with Bill Algeo. Like, I think that he just has more that it factor in this matchup. But I would never count out Alexander Hernandez. I think, he's had a win in his last bout, but I just don't see that same fire lit under him as I've seen him before he fought Donald Cerrone. So I think this is a fight where he needs to win, and there's a lot of pressure on Alexander Hernandez. But I got to go with my man Bill.
Yeah, well, for Alexander Hernandez, he's had many of these performances where he will slow down after round one because, of course, when you knock out Beneil Dariush in round one, you think you can knock out anybody in round one. But I think he's kind of learned his lesson. When he fought Jim Miller, a lot of people were expecting Jim to take over late, but Hernandez actually paced himself quite well in that fight, and he won the decision. I think against Bill Algeo, I think Hernandez will be looking to pace himself because Aljo is really good at weathering these early storms. Good example of that was the Spark Carlisle fight. I do think that Hernandez can take down Aljo because Aljo has gotten taken down by all of his opponents in the UFC, including in the Contender Series by Brendan Loughnane. I think that we're going to see Hernandez get some takedowns and land the bigger shots on the feet. Bill Algeo does not have the same power that Hernandez does. Hernandez, let's not forget, he spent most of his career at lightweight and he's going down to featherweight. That weight cut might be disastrous for him, but I'm gonna be a little optimistic here and say Hernandez wins by decision.
Yeah, a very optimistic call. Looking forward to this fight nonetheless. Alexander Hernandez does bring some of that heat in that first round, so that's definitely going to be good. Looking forward to it. If we're talking about heat in the first round, we're definitely talking about this next fight right here. He's a crazy man. Iron Kutalaba. In that first round, he's like Incredible Hulk. He does what he wants. He throws all the strikes. He throws all the bombs. It's absolutely incredible. Felipe Lins, on the other hand, as well, he's on a 3-fight winning streak after having seemingly, maybe not found out, but he was on a bad streak. But obviously, Iron Kutalaba was on a bad streak as well. He wasn't looking good. 3 back-to-back losses. Obviously got finished as well. In most of them, so it wasn't looking good for him. But then he come back and he got the win against Tanner Bosa. Obviously got that ground and pound finished in round 1 conveniently. But yeah, he got knocked out by Kenny Njeku, Johnny Walker, and obviously Ryan Spann. He got submitted by them two. So this one, I feel like he definitely has the ways of winning. He's obviously, we know how crazy he is in that first round. He throws lever to the wall. It's ridiculous. But Felipe Lins didn't really start his UFC career that well. Obviously, he went 0-2, lost to Andrzejowski, lost to Tanner Bosa, and obviously now he beat Martin Pacquiao, Owen St. Preux, and obviously Maxim Grishin. To be honest, I'm favouring Iron Kutalaba, but it's just if he can get it done in that first round, I'm banking on it. But if you look at Felipe Lins' record of getting knocked out, it's not looking good. He got knocked out in the first round by Tanner Bosa. He got knocked in the first round by Vadim Nemkov back in the day in Bellator. He got knocked out in Bellator round 2 back in the day. I'm banking on Iron Kutalaba to get that knockout in round 1. I'm calling it here first. Oscar, what have you got?
I have to agree with you. Iwan Kutalaba is a monster. He looks like a world champion in round 1 against almost everybody. And if we're talking about Felipe Lins, sure, he was the PFL heavyweight champion for a minute there, but he got knocked out by Tanner Boser, and Tanner Boser was not a real heavyweight. He went down to light heavyweight, and he met our guy, the Hulk Iwan Kutalaba, and he got eaten for dinner that day. Iwan Kutalaba is a monster. I think he's gonna decapitate Felipe Lins. He's been getting some lower level opposition recently, and I think he's gonna be a little overconfident, and he'll get clipped. And should this go to the grappling realm, Iwan Kutalaba is a really good wrestler there too, and he can maul Felipe Lins down there too. So I think Kutalaba can do whatever he wants here in round 1. This is a good matchup.
Luke, as well, the same question over to you. The Hulk Iron Kutalaba or the Brazilian Felipe Lins? Who have you got?
Yeah, no, as Oscar said, this is a great matchup. I like both guys. I'm not gonna lie. But there only can be one winner unless it goes to a draw and someone pulls out a 10-8 on the 5th round or something. No, but seriously, this is I like both guys. It could easily be a draw, but I think there's only gonna be one winner here. And I gotta go with the Hulk, man. The Hulk man. I gotta say, like he brings that power, and with Philip Lins, yes, he's been looking a lot better since he went down to light heavyweight. But the problem is I feel like he's not going to have that urgency. I don't see that urgency to kind of stay away from it. I think that power is going to be a lot in that first round. And again, he has history of being knocked out cold, like KO knockout. So I think with a guy like Ion Kutalaba, I think if he can't get him out in that first round, or maybe he might mix it up with the wrestling, not be so. I just think that Ion Kutalaba, I had that sense in my bones that he's got this. And I just don't see the urgency from Philip Lins to kind of start off quick as someone like Kudalaba would. So I definitely have Kudalaba in this fight as well, boys.
Absolutely agree. The first 5 fights of the evening, they're fantastic ones. We've got some fantastic fights, some really good ones. Look forward to it. But then we'll talk about Karolina Kovacevic versus Diana Belbita. A fantastic fight. Karolina Kovacevic is still fighting in MMA till this day. I feel like she's been around for a very long time, and she's taken Diana Belbita. And I've got to be honest with you, I'm going to be straightforward. I think this is a fantastic fight for Karolina Kovacevic. I think she can really get the job done. If you look at Diana Belbita's record, I'm not really impressed with it all whatsoever. Her 2 wins inside the UFC are meh. She's lost to Liana Juja 6-3, Monica McCann 9-2, Gloria DePaula 5-4. Her only wins are coming Hannah Goldie versus Marina Oliveira, and that was in the last fight. To be honest, I'm not really impressed with Diana Belbita, and I'm really banking. I'm really confident that Karolina Kovacevic gets this job done. 100%.
All right,
Go ahead, Luke.
You know what? I'm going to be honest here, guys. I'm going to try my best not to be biased because Diana Belbita fighting for Canada and only trains about 2 hours away from me. But looking at this matchup, this is going to be a tough fight for her. She's fighting a really good veteran like Karolina. I mean, Karolina, I know she had a bit of a tough go the last couple of years ago. And then just in her last 2 or 3 fights, she's just looks like reborn here. Like, she's not in the top 5 yet, but she just seems like she just made this comeback, and she's got 3 wins in a row. Dana White had praised her on it. Like, I just feel like she's just she had a fire lit under her. I don't know if it's her training with the other Polish girl, but it just seems like she's just doing so well lately. And I just, with Diana Belbita, as much as I really like her, she's fighting for Canada, and she's local. I just, looking at the matchup and looking at her record, I know records don't always tell the story, but I just, with who she's fought and whatnot, Karolina, I'm not gonna say her last name, boys. Karolina, she's fought in who's who. She's fought the champ. She's fought a lot of people in top 10. She's been there. She's done it. I just feel like she's got that veteran experience that she's going to expose Deanna with. And I gotta say, I go with Polish power here.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. Yeah. So Karolina Kovacevic, the reason she improved was because she went to American Top Team. And not only was she able to get some really high-level training in, but above all, she met a really good jiu-jitsu coach in Bahumpa. The guy trains the current flyweight champion, Alexandre Pantoja. He's the guy you want to talk to if you want to do jiu-jitsu for MMA. And training with that coach, she was able to submit Felice Herrig, and she's able to look really good on the ground in the last couple fights. Diana Belbita, she is a kickboxer. We have seen no grappling from her. In fact, she was challenged on the ground by Hannah Goldie, of all people. So I do think that Diana Belbita will have her hands full with Karolina Kovacevic. So much so, I actually think that we see Kovacevic get a second round submission. I do think Diana Belbita is definitely going to be behind on the ground when it gets there.
Absolutely. A good fight. Looking forward to it. Karolina Kovacevic still performing inside the UFC. It's crazy. But yeah, she's had a bit of a career resurgence as of late. But yeah, I like it. Nate Maness at 125 pounds versus Mateusz Mandoka. Oscar, we're going to fire this one straight over to you. Who have you got in the flyweight division?
I really liked Mateusz Mandoka. He got a first-round KO on the Contender Series in under a minute. And then he debuts against the Beast, Javid Basharat. Javid Basharat is a very good grappler, very good wrestler. He was able to take down Javid in that fight. Nate Maness, on the other hand, more so of a jiu-jitsu guy, and it appears that he's a little chinny. He got dropped by Tony Gravely, and then he was saved by the bell. He was able to get a really cool comeback in that fight, but I do think that Mateusz Mandoka will finish the job this time around in round 1.
Absolutely. Luke, we'll fire straight over to you.
With this fight, guys, I really like Nate Maness. I'm actually going to go with Nate on this fight. I granted the fact that he's been given all these Russian wrestlers lately, I know it's kind of showed that their dominance versus over a guy like him. But that being said, that because he's kind of fought in a lot of these guys, I've talked about this like time and time again today. It's all about you get your experience from fighting a lot of these guys. You don't get better from just fighting people that you can beat. You gotta challenge yourself and get better. And I just feel like Nate, he's getting better, and I believe he is dropping down to flyweight here. So I mean, as far as I can see, his cuts, he has been able to cut down. Whether that's going to affect his chin, and that's another thing that we got to bring up, is that he has been dropped before, and now he's even cutting even more weight. So he's he gets pretty thin as it is, and I mean, to drop down to flyweight, I mean, he's shown he can do it. So is that going to affect his chin? I think there's a lot of questions that are going to be answered here, and he's dropping down to flyweight, so he is taking a bit of a gamble here. And but that being said, I just feel like I think that he's shown that he can come back in a fight, but whether can he do that, cutting more weight and getting hit in the chin, there's a lot of questions to be answered. But I still got to go with my boy Nate Maness. I think he's got to have some good stand up there, and I think that's going to get him to the path of victory. And I'd see him getting a decision win in this fight.
Absolutely. Look forward to this fight. Nate Maness versus Mateusz Mendoza. Looking forward to that one. We move over to the women's division, 115 pounds. Kanaka Murata versus Vanessa Demopoulos. The names are getting more complicated by the week, I tell you. But yeah, is this no? This is another women's fight on the prelims. We'll talk about this one. 12-2, Kanaka Murata versus Vanessa Demopoulos, whatever her name is. Yeah, you know what, that one. But she's 9-5 versus 12-2. It's a fantastic, a decent fight on the prelim. It's not too great. But Murata, her last fight was almost 2 years ago. 2 years ago versus Verna Juradoba, where she got finished due, the arm and shoulder injury. Vanessa, she's been out for 2 months. She actually lost to Karolina Kowalkiewicz 2 months ago. I can't pronounce her name, but I can pronounce Carolina's name. Make that make sense. Make that add up. But yeah, Oscar, we'll talk to you about this fight. This one, I would say, is a bit of a tough one to call. Who have you got? I know you've got probably something up your sleeve. You probably know a random fact about these women. So, Oscar, who have you got and why?
I'm pretty confident that Kanaka Murata is going to win this one. She's coming back after getting her arm broken by Virna Jandiroba, and that was not a good look for her. Her striking was awful after her arm was broken, and the submission defense didn't look all that great. But Vanessa Demopoulos, I don't think she's on the level of Virna Jandiroba. Virna Jandiroba actually was in jiu-jitsu competitions and was successful in it. She didn't get submitted by Mackenzie Dern. And on the other hand, Demopoulos got her black belt in January of 2022. So they're different levels. And I do think that obviously Kanaka Murata is a Japanese wrestler. She's going to dominate her on the ground. She's going to defend the submission attempts. But if this stays standing, you better bet that Vanessa Demopoulos is a better striker. Her striking looks better in every fight. Is it high level? No, but it's aggressive and it's high volume, and that really matters. But I don't think it'll matter much when Kaneko is constantly taking her down.
Completely agree. Luke, over to you. What do you reckon?
Well, first off, I gotta say, ESPN, you need to sign Oscar as a commentator or like analyst or something. This guy, he knows it all. But all in seriousness, I kind of have to agree with Oscar. Like Kanako, I just think she's on another level than Vanessa. I think Vanessa can hang with some people in the UFC, but no disrespect, I just don't see a whole lot in her game that kind of blows my socks off by any means. But that being said, we kind of have to see, like, things just happen, and who knows, like Oscar said, she got a black belt. A lot of things can happen in this fight. Obviously the other girl was off for like 2 years because of I don't know if it was because of the injury or not, but she was off for 2 years. So you never know what someone's going to look like in 2 years. So you can see a lot more improvement from her, but you also see a lot coming from Vanessa Demopoulos. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know. I think whoever wins this fight is going to jump in Michael Bisping's arms. I think that, but I'm seriously though, I am going to go with Kanako in this one. I just think that she's on another level, and she's been impressive so far besides her last loss. But I got Kanako in this one.
Absolutely agree. Moving on to the next one, last 2 fights of the evening, or the first 2 fights of the evening, if the way we're going for it. So, but yeah, Johnny Munoz Jr. versus Arishi Lang. This one I'm going to keep it out there playing simple. I'm going to shoot it out. I like Johnny Munoz in this fight. I have no confidence in Arishi Lang, to be honest. Outside the UFC, didn't really fought that much of a competition. Inside the UFC, didn't really have too much success. Obviously, lost to Jeff Molina, lost to Cody Durden. He beat Cameron Elsey and Jay Perrin. I don't really have too much confidence in the wins that he's had inside the UFC. So that one, I'm not really counting. We're not counting, but I'm disregarding them basically. I think Johnny Munoz is this is still a tough one to pick. It's quite, I'd say it's probably about a 60-40 confidence split towards Johnny Munoz. I'm not really too confident, but he's got wins over Jamie Simmons inside the UFC. He's got wins over Ludovic Shalilian inside the UFC, but he has lost the likes of Daniel Santos, Tony Gravely, Nate Maness inside the UFC. So there's still a lot to be still a lot of work for Johnny Munoz, but I feel like he gets the job done against Arishi Lang.
Go ahead, Luke.
I agree. Richie Lang, maybe when he first got in, there might have been a little bit of hype from him, but he just hasn't really shown a whole lot. And I just feel like he didn't have that same kind of level of competition outside the UFC that didn't really truly prepare him for the level of competition that can be inside the UFC. So I'm going to have to go with Johnny Munoz with this one. I just think that, he has a little bit more to his game. And as you said, I think there's a little bit more confidence level with him. And as we get into the next fight, it just seems like both these fighters are a little, Richie Long a little bit more inconsistent and just doesn't show that level of confidence there. So I think I would have to go with Johnny Munoz on this fight.
Yeah, I have to agree with you guys. Richie Lang, he is not the best grappler out there. His striking is pretty good, but I really think that if we see Johnny Munoz get some takedowns, I think he'll maybe get a submission here. I do think that he's going to get a lot of control time. On the feet, I wouldn't even say that Arishi Lang has this massive advantage either. And Munoz, when he fought Ludovic Sholinian, that really proved his abilities to me. Sholinian has been wrestling all his life, and he was not able to take down Munoz, and Munoz got 2 takedowns there. I think that the grappling should pay off for Johnny Munoz Jr.
Absolutely. We'll keep it swiftly moving on to the first fight of the evening. This one is a really tough one to pick. 50-50 if it could ever be in an MMA fight. JJ Aldridge and Montana De La Rosa. JJ Aldridge obviously coming off the back of that Nan Liang ground and pound win not that long ago, just over a month. And obviously Montana De La Rosa, she lost against Tatiana Suarez in her last fight and lost to Macy Barber. So, she's losing to some of the best in the world. She lost to Viviana Araujo. She's lost to Andrea Lee. So there are no shames in the losses. She had a fantastic start to her career off the back of the Ultimate Fighter season 26. Beat Christina Marks, Rachel Ostovich, Nadia Kasim, all by submission. So she had a fantastic run, and then it kind of fell off a little bit. Lost to Andrea Lee, beat Maria Barella, lost to Viviana Araujo, drew against Morena Bruno Silva, beat Oriana Lipsky, and now she lost to Macy Barber versus Tatiana Suarez. JJ Aldridge, on the other hand, she's on a 1-fight winning streak, as I mentioned, against Naliang. She also lost against Oriana Lipsky and Aaron Bletchford in the last 2 before that. So this one, I think, is completely 50-50. It's just whoever you think is going to win, and I'm going with Montana De La Rosa, but no confidence in that pick whatsoever.
Yeah, I 100% have to agree. This is kind of a weird fight that I've had to look at because both girls, I'm going to be honest with you, there's been fights where they should have won that they lost, and there was fights that I didn't think they were going to win that they had won. So with both fighters, and it's really weird how this matchup's kind of happened. So I'm not really overly impressed with Gigi Aldridge. Maybe like her first fight or two, she had some good striking, but I don't know. I didn't really see a whole lot from her that really that blew my mind or anything. And in Montana De La Rosa, I just feel like I've kind of watched some of the girls that she's fought and that she should have won, and just I don't know. Like, and then there's fights that she really surprised me, and I think the surprising has been more impressive, and I just feel like she's had more impressive wins. So as much as it's kind of more of a 50-50 fight, you can flip a coin and somebody's going to win. I do think that I have more confidence that Montana De La Rosa is gonna push in there, and I think she has more the ability and has more the opportunity to really get into the top 15 and to head that direction. I just think Gigi Aldridge, this could be her last fight. It may not be, but she's definitely not things aren't looking good for her as well. So I think Montana De La Rosa, she definitely has more the ability and chance to get into, crack that top 15 or that top 10 maybe. And I'm going to go with her on this one.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. Montana De La Rosa, I believe her ceiling is higher than Gigi Aldridge because she has that wrestling background. Gigi Aldridge, in the matchups where she excels in, it's where she defends takedowns and outstrikes her opponents. I don't really think she can defend that many takedowns from Montana De La Rosa because Montana absolutely mauled Gigi Aldridge. She got a second round TKO there. That's her taking her down. And Gigi Aldridge got taken down twice by Ariane Lipski. I thought that was an awful performance, and that made me lose all confidence in her. Montana De La Rosa, on the other hand, her last fight was against Tatiana Suarez. I am not taking anything away from her after that fight. I do think the draw against Mario Bueno Silva aged really well. That was a draw, and Mario Bueno Silva submitted Holly Holm like it was nothing. She took down Bueno Silva 3 times in that fight. I think that Gigi Aldridge is probably going to get out grappled here. Again, I'm not super confident. Aldridge does have a striking advantage, but I think Montana De La Rosa gets enough control time in this fight to make it matter and win a decision.
Yeah, completely agree. A really tough one to pick between the two ladies at the start of the evening. Looking forward to it though. A fantastic fight night. Some really underrated fights on the card, especially when we get to the top of the card. And, the main card: Drew Dober, Alex Mona versus Joaquin Buckley, Felipe Pillez versus Ian Kutalaba, Joe Pfeiffer, Abdul Razak Al Hassan, and obviously the main event. It's a fantastic little fight now. I'm looking forward to it. Obviously back in the Apex this week. But yeah, that pretty much rounds up. Anything else that you guys would like to talk about? Anything on your mind? Oscar, Luke, please.
Well, I could just say this is a great UFC fight night card. As much as I'm not a big fan of it being at the Apex. I mean, you can hear a whole lot more, but I like having the crowd there. It was okay for the pandemic, but I just feel like this is kind of a cheap way of the UFC cheaping out and not using the crowd anymore, not trying to bring it to stadiums. I'm not a big fan of that, and that's just my personal opinion. But overall, besides the atmosphere, this card is a really good card. A lot of great fights, a lot of big names. This is the kind of fight that I can bring my Thanksgiving dinner down to and watch the fight. I think this is going to be really, really cool to watch. And then I think this also opens up a lot of good opportunities for different matchups as well. I think that wins, losses, whoever loses, this opens up a fight for someone who else may have a loss. Win like someone like Grant Dawson, I did say, who I did pick. I do feel like this puts him into another matchup that could put him into a top 13, 12, maybe 11 matchup. So it's definitely going to be interesting to kind of see where a lot of these fighters go on from here. But I really like this card. I'm actually quite impressed with the fight night. So we're definitely going to see what happens, and I'm excited. I'm going to try my best to get to watch all of them, but life happens, and I don't know about you boys, but I'm excited to at least get the main event, hopefully.
Above all, I do think we will see a lot of finishes on this card. I'm the guy that usually tends to pick decisions over finishes just to be safe, but in this case, I see a lot of fights where we have explosive guys in there, and I think we're going to get some really fun moments on this card.
Completely agree. Looking forward to it. It's going to be a fantastic event. There is something to talk about. Actually, I just remembered. I don't know whether you guys watched the PFL or PFL Europe, but a star was born the other week or the week just gone on the weekend. His name is Cedric Doumbé. He went on and put on a fantastic performance. Obviously in Paris. I don't know whether I've skipped it or not. But yeah, he put on a fantastic. Here we are. Put on a fantastic performance in Paris. Knocking out his opponent in 9 seconds. Jordan Zembo got absolutely starched. It was incredible. I don't know whether you guys caught it or not, but the UFC signed this guy, Cedric Doumbé, and then released him. Said, I don't know what the real reason was. Maybe it had something to do with his head scan, I believe. And then he got released. But now he's outside fighting in the PFL. And the PFL have got a star on his hands. He's huge over there in France. Did you catch it, and what do you make of him?
I didn't get a chance to watch it, unfortunately. But I have watched. I have looked up on it just with the feed and everything. I'm really impressed with him. It'll be kind of interesting to see what he's going to do, whether he wants to stay within the PFL. Granted that they re-sign him, or how many seasons he's going to be there for. But I definitely, if anything, I think he could definitely make it into like the regular PFL season as well. I feel like they definitely got a new star on their hands. And if I give him any advice, I'd say stay at PFL. He's going to make more money there. He's definitely going to be a star there, and it's really risky to come to the UFC at that point of his career right now. He's red hot, and I'd say that stay at PFL where you are, where you're probably making more money. Like, I don't mean to trash the UFC here. I don't mean to get us in trouble here, but no, like there's no secret that he's probably getting paid more in the PFL, and I think I think you'll find a lot more success there as of right now. So he just needs to keep doing what he's doing, and I think he's gonna go far away.
I could not agree more. Cedric Doumbé had a really good showing, 9-second KO there. He brought a bet out saying that it was going to be a good night for Jordan Zembo, and it was. Of course, I would say he's a little fish in a big pond in the UFC, but in the PFL, he's a big fish in a little pond. I do think that this is where he's more appreciated, and this is where he will not have to face some of these fantastic grapplers that will maul him at 170, because 170 is the land of grapplers. Leon Edwards had to elevate his grappling to be champion. Colby Covington is the challenger. Usman is the former champion. Those guys are really good grapplers, and I think they would give problems to Cedric. But in PFL, there's a lot of guys he can put to sleep just like this.
Absolutely agree. Looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to see how his career progresses throughout the years. But yeah, absolutely fantastic. Appreciate the show, guys. That was UFC Vegas 80. Looking forward to it. Heading down this weekend. Obviously, Grant Dawson versus Bobby Green in the main event. Make sure you catch it live on ESPN. Any sending off words, guys? Anything you want to say? Otherwise, we're going to let him go for the rest of the day.
Okay, you go ahead.
I'm just going to say right now, the judging needs to get better. That's the last thing I will say. The judging needs to get better in the UFC.
Yep.
I think Chris Lieben becoming a new judge, I think that may be helpful. He even was the sole judge that was part of a split decision, 2 weeks ago. And I think he's definitely a welcome addition to the judging panel.
Completely agree. There we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Lost my voice there, but make sure you enjoy the fights this weekend. UFC Vegas going down, UFC 80 going down in the Apex. Grant Dawson versus Bobby Green. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll catch you all next week on another episode of the podcast. I also appreciate you, Luke, for coming on for the episode. Absolutely enjoyed it. We'll get you back on for another show. I know we've got a big pay-per-view coming up then, so if you're free, we'll run it back.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Catch you all next week. Goodbye.